Kia ora, good afternoon. A bit of a change up from what I've been posting, but um, I just posted that last post in regards to, the MSNN news flash. And I'd said in it about, you know, um, being with my friend and seeing a piece of the Berlin Wall and talking to that man. And then after I made it and uploaded it, I started thinking to myself, wait, which one was it? Because I knew two people that had pieces of the Berlin Wall, two different countries, two very different circumstances. And then I started doubting what I'd said. And then I'm like, oh my God, because as a physicist, as someone who deals in time theory, as I've explained before, I can't get the stuff that I say wrong because it slows down evolution, it slows time down. And then I think, oh God, if I've gotten anything wrong, I'm going to get into trouble with God. And then it bothers me. It eats away at my conscience. Not like anxiety or anything like that, but I always say that, whenever I say stuff and then it sits on my brain, it nags at me. It's always a sign that I've maybe misremembered something or gotten something wrong. So then I was sitting there trying to split the two memories that I had apart and trying to decipher, okay, well, I remember this situation with that and that situation with this, and, having to pick it apart, unravel it. And, I've mentioned this before about how being a victim of domestic abuse for so many years with the father of my children, it created memory loss. One of the side effects of severe narcissistic abuse is you suffer from memory loss. And I've just been looking it up because I had to put in the description box the correction and explaining the two story threads and all of that, because otherwise it won't sit with me. I have to correct the stuff that I say that I might get wrong because, like I said, working in time theory, the way that I manifest and see time, everything has to be pitch perfect and glitch free. If there's any blips or glitch in the in a biorhythmic frequency when I'm trying to tap into the creation frequency or anything like that, I can get information wrong and it can have a detrimental effect on, like if I'm recording an event where someone's going to die in the future and they're needing me to get my details completely perfect and that sort of thing, or like working on an investigation with the Queen and that I can't get it wrong, not because I'm in trouble of, not because I'm worried about getting into trouble with the law and that, it's because the way quantum magnetics works and the way manipulating time and manifesting time and all of that, manifesting reality works, the universe doesn't respond well when there's glitches in the frequency that's required to evolve in a way that betters humanity. We all have to be kind of running on the same pitch and frequency. So as someone who's a messenger, as someone who passes messages on, I can't get the information wrong. So when I say stuff and I think I've gotten something wrong and it sits with me, I have to correct it. It doesn't sit with me to not correct anything that I might have gotten wrong. So I've always known for a while, like for a long time, that like memory loss is a symptom of severe narcissistic abuse. But I just decided to look into it a little bit more and I didn't realise that it was considered brain damage. Because apparently when you're constantly being abused, like I was with this man, like I met him in 98. I moved over in 2000 and then, set free. Well, everything happened in 2022. So I've been in the presence of my abuser for a very, very, very long time, and apparently, I'll put a link to the article in the description box below. When you're around constant narcissistic abuse and you're being constantly gaslit, where you'll say something, no, you're wrong, no, that didn't happen like that, don't be so dumb, what the hell's wrong with you, you idiot, this, that, and the other thing. It makes you doubt yourself. It makes you doubt and question your own intuition and your own instincts and your own feelings in that, because it's not just about the abuse, it's about the mental manipulation, the mind manipulation. And my ex was very, very good at talking you into things and talking you around things in a way where you would think, well, why would it, like, that makes sense? Talking you, he's very, very good at talking you into his way of seeing things, to the point where it would then make me question my own instincts and intuition. I'd get a gut feeling about something that he was saying that wasn't true, and I'd confront him about it, or I'd try to correct him about something that was had an intuitive hit for me, which for someone of my bloodline and my ability and my powers and that, it's tragic, because I should have been evolved a lot faster than I was. But because of his manipulation and his need to want to control everything about my life, he controlled what I ate. He controlled if I got to wear clothes. I'm not even joking. He controlled whether I had access to the dentist, the doctor, money, prescriptions, all of it. He controlled everything, who I talked to, how I talked to them. If, like, my phones or technology broke, he was the one that decided whether I would get replacements and that sort of thing. So he controlled every single aspect of my life. So now I'm doing this research into narcissistic abuse and memory loss. I don't have any of the other symptoms, thank God. Like, I don't have depression or low self-esteem. Like, I know who I am as a person. I know my value. I know the value I bring to any relationship. I'm not going to let anyone tell me I'm someone I'm not. But with memory loss from narcissistic abuse, it makes you question yourself a lot. It makes you, the other day how I forgot Gabby Petito's last name, that sort of thing. That's a symptom of narcissistic abuse, when you forget the small things, like little details in that, and it makes you doubt the things that you say. Like what happened in my last live, I was like, wait, did I get that right? And then I had to sit and pick it apart. The good and the bad to that is, I have because what happens is, when you're in a hyper aware sense of, hyper vigilance and having to walk on eggshells, and your mood and the mood of your household is completely reliant on their mood. Like, my boys and I, we had to walk on eggshells the whole time, because my ex can snap and lose his temper at any point. And when he loses his temper, he yells, he screams, he grits his teeth, he stands over you. He clenches his fists, he throws things, he slams doors, and all of that. And so that hypervigilance apparently causes spikes in cortisol and shrinks the hippocampus. And then it causes, the memory loss and that. But the good thing is that you just have to learn to retrain your brain, and look, work on your diet and make sure that you can maintain, when you're away from the abuse, a state of peace, and then retrain your brain by doing things like puzzles. So see, I problem solve. I work my brain by problem solving. And I might forget the small details, and I might misremember things from my past, but then by it nagging my brain, I then have to pick it apart to recorrect it, and that's problem solving, and then it strengthens my brain, and then I'm able to, like, take a leap forward, and then keep working on time theory, or continue my investigations and stuff. It makes me sad, like I'm not like depression or mental health sad and that, but it's like I'm sad at myself because it's like, how did I not see it? I even said to them when I was locked up, when the lawyer working on my case said that what I had gone through was domestic abuse, I couldn't believe it. And I said, how did I not know? And then I went back to my room and I did this. I was looking up like signs and symptoms of domestic abuse. And it's like, how did I not know that that's what it was? And it's like, because he was so good at manipulating the way that I thought and felt, I believed him. It was like a form of Stockholm syndrome. You know, how you sympathise with your kidnappers and that? It was just like that. So it's like, I can't believe I let it happen. I have to take responsibility in some form for the abuse because I allowed it to happen because I was smarter than that. But I didn't want to cause any trouble because I was trapped with him, because over the course of our 20 plus years of me knowing him, he made sure that he controlled every aspect of my life, including even when we weren't even married anymore. He made sure that he pulled those emotional violin strings enough so that, you know, after him and I broke up and I wanted to get a place of my own and that, well, you know, do you mind if you don't move out? Like, can you just, like, can we just live together and you help me with the boys and stuff and I'll pay all the bills and take care of you? It's just, I can't really get a place on my own and I'm not going to be able to afford child support and all of that. And so I thought, oh, well, you know, go easy on him and all that sort of thing. And it ended up being all part of the manipulation tactic to make sure that he controlled everything. You know, I wanted to go on government assist, you know, because obviously I was going to go out into the world, get a place, and until I was able to get my lawsuit with Rocio and all of that taken care of, like with the Air Force for hacking my phone and, you know, everything, because I didn't know he was in on it at that point, just to get back on my feet, get help from the government. And then he was like, I even applied for the forms and everything to get help. And then he took it upon himself to call, who was it, Citizens Advice Bureau or something like that, and they told him I didn't qualify for benefits. So then he came and said to me, look, you know, I've checked it out for you and you can't move it. Like, they're not going to give you money while you're living here with me, and they're not going to help you out there, because what do you say? Because I've been with him too long, or something like that. Like I didn't qualify for government assistance. Is basically what I'm saying, and I believed him because I thought, well, why would he lie? And I'm sad at myself because it's like, Debbie Lee Callahan, you're so much smarter than that. Looking back now, if it was anybody else in my life going through it, I'd be able to say that's abuse. Because I do, like, you're being abused. That's abuse. That's not healthy. That's toxic. You're ignoring the red flags. But being in it, either I. See, the thing is, I used to lie in bed at night and cry and pray to God and say, please, can you get us out of here? The boys and I were always happier when it was just the three of us, because we grew up with it always just being the three of us. And so we were used to it just being the three of us. And when my ex used to lock us inside and go off for the weekend, he'd always go on a Friday, usually finishing work in the afternoon, and come back either Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning sort of thing. And we used to call it babysitting night. That's when we got to have our takeout, we got to have snacks and treats and that, and we'd watch movies, play video games. And my son Thomas, whose birthday it is today, used to say it was practice for when we get out on our own. And it wasn't until I got locked up that I realised that just even the fact that he used to lock us inside and feed us food through the door wasn't normal. And I didn't even think for 1 second that I could unlock the door and step out of it. If I wanted to do baking, I had to ask permission to go and get the ingredients. And then I found out later he was telling people that I was taking all his money, spending all his money, and I wasn't. My boys and I used to have to live in our pajamas. My boys had 2 pair of pajamas and like 2 changes of clothes, and I was the same. We had to live in our pajamas because we had no clothes, because he wouldn't buy us clothes. In the meantime, he had a walk-in wardrobe and a bookshelf full of clothes, overflowing with clothes and jewelry and like 6, 7. Every time I was able to even get like a bit of money, the first thing I'd do is buy my boys clothes and toys, and it was like that's what I wrote in Message in a Bottle. Hiding them away. I knew I was unhappy. I knew he was a bad person. I knew he was hurting us, but I was in denial about it because I felt trapped, because he led me to believe I had no way out until I got justice. My connection just cut off there, so I don't know. But I used to hate it. I used to see my boys in their pajamas with holes in them, and then yeah, it just used to break my heart. It was one of the things I was so grateful for when I was locked up, and they took me to the working pensions to get financial support. Jessica, my case manager, I just adored her. Her work colleague used to call her the Ice Queen, but she was lovely to me. I wrote her in as a character for the Quantum Menace. I even messaged her and said, "This is my character. Can I have your permission to write her into the Quantum Menace?" And she said yes. So Jess, yes, she gave me a loan of £150 so that I could buy the boys clothes, and I spent every penny just buying them clothes. Because they had no clothes. I told social services because he had that much control over us. And if he said no, we got nothing, which, my teeth, when he was poisoning me and all my fillings fell out and that, I, our dentist came out with notifications to say if you miss an appointment, you're automatically struck off. And I'd made an appointment, and I'd made it for, I can't remember if it was 7:30 at night or 7:30 in the morning, and he took me at the wrong time. He said, "Oh, I thought you said it's not 7 in the morning, it's 7 at night," or vice versa, or whatever. They usually used to give me reminders, and I wasn't getting reminders. And he changed it, and then of course when I turned up they said no, your appointment, like it was the wrong time, and then I got struck off, and then I haven't been able to find a dentist since, which is why my teeth are the way they are. And I walked around for 13 months with no shoes on my feet. No shoes. I had bare feet, literally no shoes. I had to run into the store in bare feet. And then if we did used to go out, I used to have to wear these hideous Ugg boots, like even in the summer, because I had no shoes, because my husband Martin was getting everything and feeding his fat self, and I just was entering into these toxic relationships with men because it was all I knew growing up. When you're around unhealthy relationships in your family dynamic as a child, you look for it as an adult. And I walked right into it with my ex. And I'm so determined to correct all the glitches and blimps, because I'm terrified that I've always said my worst nightmare is that my boys will grow up to be just like their father. So I work on myself, and I put everything out there to be an example to everybody else on what to do to fix themselves, on what to do to heal from it, because it gave me brain damage not listening to the red flags. But the thing is, like I said, the good news is it can be healed. It just takes time, and you have to retrain your brain and give your brain all sorts of problem solving exercises, which is what I've been doing. The blessing in all of this is everything that he did to me, and healing from the childhood traumas of the narcissistic abuse from members of my own family. It sharpened my investigation skills, and in problem solving and finding answers to things, and wanting to work on helping the Queen get justice, and help the King and stuff. It trained my brain to investigate with pitch perfect clarity, which has started bringing my memory back. I'm starting to remember things from the past that I had completely forgotten about, so I know it's working. It's just the short-term memory loss that I still need to work on. But in doing the research that I've just done, and I'll put a link to the article in the description box, it's made me understand where it's come from, what I need to do to fix it. And once I get justice and I can relax and know that my boys are safe and I've gotten them away from that toxic environment and my truth has been heard and the law says, yes, we agree with you, then I can relax. One of the reasons why you will suffer from the short-term memory loss and have, like forget small details, it specifically said you forget small details, like forgetting Gabby Petito's last name. I used to be known for my impeccable memory. I used to have like a photographic memory. And I think that's one of the reasons why he was so abusive, because I remembered everything. I remember when you did that. No, that never happened. No, it didn't. No, And then he'd make me question it. And then he'd shout and scream and, oh, for F's sake, why don't you just get out of my effing room, and that sort of thing. And then, the panic would set in, and the fight or flight, freeze, fight or fight, would freeze, flight or fight would kick in, and you get the cortisol spikes. And that's what this article was talking about. I got blamed for everything that went wrong with him, everything he got wrong. You couldn't tell him he was wrong, anything like that, because then, the screaming, and when he gets angry, he talks through his teeth like he's about to bite you. Like, there were so many times where he'd have me backed into a corner, and I'm 6 foot, but he's like 6'6", so he's a lot bigger than me. And he used to do this thing of like standing over me and barking down at me with his teeth gritted. And I swear to God, he was doing it to hold all his strength back to stop himself from wanting to punch me, because he'd stand with his clenched fists and talk through his teeth like he was wanting to take a bite out of me. And to protect my children, I'd do everything I could to keep the peace and stroke his ego and, go on about how wonderful he was and feed his ego, and then that would calm him down. And then he would walk around like the emperor in his castle, because he'd gotten one over on me. And I just used to go to bed and I'd cry and I'd say to God, please get me out of here. You please set me free. Please. I just got to hang in there a little bit longer, and then when I get justice, the boys and I can go. We can leave, and he doesn't have to be a part of my world anymore. I used to say to him, we had this agreement that if I lived with him and, didn't charge him child support or anything like that, he'd look after me until I got justice, till I got back on my feet, and then I would leave and build my school. And then I would, in return, this is how stupid I was. I said to him, in return for thanking him for taking care of me while I was getting on my feet after, my marriage with Martin had ended, my way of thanking him is then I would let him retire. He could give up work and just go off in his bike or his camper van and just do art. And then if he wanted, and I'd pay for it, like I'd be his benefactor. And then if he wanted to, because I was going to have an art gallery at my school, I'd put his art in my gallery. And he went round telling people, because I'd offered that solution to him as a way of saying thank you for his support, he told people I was trying to control his life. He even tried to tell me when I came back from, after he sabotaged my career in the radio industry in Chicago, after they all said, because Donald Trump was buying up all the radio stations and that anyway to control the media, but I didn't know that they were all in on it back then, but they sabotaged my radio career in Chicago. When he picked me up at the airport, I just got a barrage of abuse because he'd been contacted by my students who had said that I was trying to control his life and that I was going to put a tracking device in his vehicle so that I could watch everything he was doing, and that's not even the case. What happened was, I said to him, when he's in remote areas of the world in his camper van, could we have some sort of device where if we didn't hear from him after a certain time, we could look to see where he was, get the police to see where he was. If we said 2 weeks. If we didn't hear from him after 2 weeks, this is where our agreement, if we didn't hear from him after 2 weeks, we were allowed to get the police to do like a wellness check where they'd be able to look and see where he was in the world, and then we'd know, whether he was okay or not, whether to get him help or not, because he wanted to go off into the wilderness and just camp and draw and paint and all of that. And I said, you're a dad, and I'm not going to tell you what to do, but can we come up with some sort of arrangement? Because, if he got trapped in snow, if he was out in the middle of Siberia or Mongolia or, the wild wastes of America, and he got trapped in snow, or he got like a flat tire and couldn't get to help in that, we had contingency plans. He said, well, I'm going to have a bike that I'll keep, the camper van he wanted was going to have a little garage shed thing in the back so he could keep a bike, so if anything happened he'd be able to ride to the nearest town or whatever. We had all these contingency plans. So he went and told everyone that I wanted to put a tracking device on him because the students had told him that I had this plan to control his life. And I'm like, every time I try to defend myself, his counter argument was such where he made me even question, well, had we even, did we have the same agreement? Why was he leading himself to believe that I was trying to control him? Because, see, that's the Darvo effect, where they commit the act of violence and abuse, and then they blame you for making them the victim, because then they feel sorry for themselves when you try to defend yourself. They turn your abuse into their victimhood. But I didn't know any of that, and then it's just like, God, Debbie, really? You didn't know that's what he was, I thought I was smarter than that until he did what he did in June of 22. And when I was pulled away from it, even though I had the heartache of being separated from my babies, God said to me, trust the plan, have faith. Have faith, because when you come out the other side of this, you're not going to be regretful that it happened. My only regret is that it's kept me away from my boys for so long, because I genuinely thought once the police heard my story and I got to sit with the judge and they'd understand exactly what it was that was going on, because the nurses did, and so did the lawyer. There was the nurse, Moe. She was from Mauritius, I think. I think she was from Mauritius. She spoke French. I used to say good morning to her and that in French, and goodbye in French. And she was one of those people that deserved her job. She was so good at what she did. She was the one that I ended up going to when the infection in my scars and that got so bad that I was too scared to go to sleep. And I took her aside because my rotting flesh was starting to stink. I could smell my flesh rotting. And I took her aside. She was the third or fourth nurse that I went to, but she wasn't always on duty. And I used to keep myself isolated to keep my energy pure, to keep my frequency pure, because I was writing and starting my investigation and to get justice. And I took her aside and I showed her my infections, and then she was furious. She was absolutely furious. And then she demanded, she absolutely ripped shit into the doctors and that. And then it was still 2 weeks after that before I even got treatment for it, because they pissed about so much. And when I sat down, when they took my phone off me, my ex rang them and said I was posting stuff on social media that was upsetting my children, so they took my phone off me. But it's because he was listening in on the conversation I was having with my sister Erin about how he was starting. I was catching him wearing women's lingerie, and then hours later, my phone got taken off me. And I knew that's what it was. And when I was allowed to call my boys, I used to have someone sit with me, and she was sitting with me when I was making this call to my boys. Like, how it's so undignified. They used to listen to me. Ugh, I'd sing them my goodnight song. I'd ring them up to say goodnight to them, and I'd sing "You Are My Sunshine" and "Dream a Little Dream" in front of them, in front of the nurses, to my babies. And I told her what had happened, and she goes, "Oh," she said, "I know this story." She said, "What's happened is you've been catching him out on stuff, and to cover his own ass, he's lied to the police and said this, that, and the other, that you had weapons and stuff, in order to hide everything he's been doing." Like, she called it, like, word for word, she called out exactly everything. She knew from top to bottom exactly what he'd done and what I was being put through. And she was one of the nurses. And Jodie and Sally Ann were the others that were saying to the doctors, she doesn't deserve to be in here. Why is she in here? The indignity that those doctors put me through because of a lie that one man told to cover his tracks, when I realised he was stealing my books, stealing my products, sleeping with women and lying about it, locking us inside and lying to my sons. When I started figuring everything out, and then when I knew that he put that cocaine in the pizza, he told the boys the cocaine wasn't in the pizza, it was in the weed. It was like, well, how do you know? I know it was in the pizza because it tasted funny, but it was half cooked, and I just assumed, because gluten-free pizza isn't the best tasting pizza in the world anyway, which is why I make my own pizza, because I have a gluten allergy. And I just assumed it was because he'd half cooked it. He hadn't cooked it properly. He was panicking. He threw that pizza at me. "I've got to go. Bye." Boom. And shot out the door so fast he put a hole in the wall. And then it was his reaction of, like, it was like it's like he'd pulled the pin through the grenade and then had to run for cover. And it was that reaction that made me think, what's he done? He's done something. And then that's when everything started kicking in. And I said to the boys, "I think your father's drugged me." And I was trying not to panic, because I needed to be calm for the boys. I started drinking copious amounts of water and that to try and flush it out, try and make myself vomit, because I didn't know what he'd put in the pizza. And I left that message and I said to him, I know what you've done. Don't come back to the house. I'm locking the doors because I needed time to get my head clear enough to figure out, because it felt like I was underwater. And I was trying to make sense of everything, and my boys were there to keep me steady. That's when my son got the knife and the crowbar and brought it up to the room. He said, just in case we need it. Because I didn't know if he was coming back with people. I didn't know if I was about to be attacked. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I had two different kinds of, because he'd got me the weed that ended up having the opioids in it. That mixed with the cocaine and the pizza, I didn't know if my life was in danger. I didn't know if we were about to be attacked. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was just trying to sit to get clarity. And then when he didn't listen and came back to the house and just acted like nothing had happened, my youngest came running up the stairs and he said, Tardo's let himself back in. And I was like, what? Surely not. And I thought, is he going to wait till we're asleep? Is he going to stab me? Like, I genuinely didn't know what the hell was going on. And so then I called the police. I was the first one to call the police. And Chris came out of his bedroom and my baby, my youngest, my little boy stood there with a crowbar and he pushed me behind him. My youngest did, as if to say, get behind me, Mum, I've got this. And my ex just said to Gabriel, like, look down at him, like, really, Gabriel? Like, you think you're going to take me on? And Gabriel was like, yep. And he goes, you're going to regret this, F and F and F, as he stormed out of the house because I'd called the cops. And then, 5 hours later, like the boys and I went to sleep. I got up to do the housework, waiting for them to get up, and that's when I realised he'd stolen my book. You'll see the videos that I made that night where I'm going through my book, the design of what I was calling the Dragonarian at the time, all those books that we uploaded, the videos that I uploaded. He then rang the police when he realised that I'd caught him out, when he knew I'd caught him out. That's when he rang the police and said I was in a distressed state, barricaded in the boys' bedrooms. When the cops turned up, my boys were fast asleep. My mattress was on the floor in their bedroom because we all needed to stay together because, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. And, yeah, no, he said we were barricaded. You couldn't even shut the boys' bedroom door. It can't shut. And then I said later on, if I was barricaded with weapons threatening to kill myself in such a distressed state with my boys trapped in that bedroom, why did he wait 5 hours to call the police, and why did he leave the house without saving the boys? Because people need to remember, when he called the police, he called the cops on Thomas as well. Because Thomas is the one that had the weapons. It was all on video, but the cops didn't even investigate any of it. They just took his word for it, and I was denied my due diligence. But now I know why, because they were all in on it. They were told, shut her down, shut her up, because she's a threat to the government, because she's a threat. She's going to uncover and whistleblow everything that we're trying to do, which ended up being the murder of the Queen, to abolish the monarchy, to harvest organs, traffic kids, all of it. All of it. I was starting to speak out about the injustices between Russia and Ukraine, and Donald Trump couldn't risk me uncovering the truth. But them doing what they did ended up not just uncovering the truth, but blowing the whole thing wide open. And it's in doing my investigation that started helping me build my hippocampus back up. So there is light at the end of the tunnel if you're a victim of narcissistic abuse. You just have to remove yourself from all and any toxic situations, and then retrain your brain by doing problem solving and puzzles. I'll put a link in the description box below. But what I want to say is, don't be the victim. They want you to be the victim. They want you to feel sorry for yourself. When they have you in your mind, when they have you in anxiety or depression or whatever, whatever the symptoms are that you exhibit for narcissistic abuse, they win. That's why, I spoke out about being molested as a child and being sexually abused and all of that, because when you stay silent, they win. When their threats and that achieve what they want out of making those threats, they win. And nobody has the right to control who you are, how you feel, and what you think. No one but you. So you have to learn to take that control back and say no. It's hard, but don't stay in relationships for the sake of the children. It's the worst thing you can do, because all you're doing is teaching your children that the accepted practice is to stay inside abusive relationships, whether it's platonic, sexual, marital, familial. Don't teach your kids that it's okay to stay in toxic relationships. I've worked so hard to try and be the best example of what a woman and a mother is to my sons. And I was doing so well. My boys and I were doing so well until they started coming for their visits last year, and my ex was seeing what we were building together, and then he went out of his way to do the mind manipulation thing on my boys that he did to me. And it just made me more determined to fight to get justice and save my boys. Because my youngest has memory loss issues now too. He says he has dementia, but it's not. It's because he's a victim of narcissistic abuse too. And I'm trying desperately to rescue my boys. I said I'd marry the man that helped me rescue my boys. So, yeah. So if I have memory issues, where I forget, like how I forgot Gabby Petito's last name, you know why, and I'm working on it. If I get anything that I say wrong, I will correct it. I have to correct it because it's physically impossible for me to live a lie. It sits on my brain and eats away at me, because as a time jumper, with my physics being what it is, and with what my physics is needed to be used for, I can't get this stuff wrong. So if I do get anything wrong or misremember anything, I promise you I will recorrect it. But when it comes to my investigations, when I put my name on an investigation, I will make sure that my facts are solid. So I'll put a link in the description box for the symptoms of narcissistic abuse. Have a look. And if you're exhibiting any of those, I've got a lot of videos, especially because narcissists, they love to go after the empaths. They see them as easy prey. I've got a lot of videos in my Oracle of Delphine series that shows you how to deal with a lot of this stuff. So when I get out of here and I get my radio station up and running, I get my podcast and that, I'll be able to do more shows. And then I want to invite callers into, so that we can, I want to do like talkback. I want to do like a talkback radio for like the supernatural, paranormal stuff, like the occult stuff. But I want to do talkback as well for people needing empath, creative empathic high funk therapy. So I'll put a link in the description box, but yeah, I have a ton of videos, the Oracle of Delphine series, that will tell you everything you need, why high funks have trouble meditating, and the doppelganger effect, and all of these sort of things to prepare you for your ascension and your healing process. And so this video here is one in the series. So I'll put a link in the description box. I'm going to go and get my dinner on now, and I'll speak to you later. Hold your head up high, and we're in this together. I'm going to help you understand yourself so that you can heal all the parts of you that we allowed other people to break in us. We allowed it to happen because we ignored the red flags. You can't ignore the red flags. It's better to just walk away and have it be, hard and be a nuisance, and that to stick with it, because it ends up giving you these kind of long-term effects. And the longer you take to deal with it, the harder it is to recover from. So just bite the bullet and always put yourself first. Don't ever let anyone tell you who you are as a person, what you should be thinking and what you should be feeling. Don't let anyone tell you that your intuition and your instincts are wrong, because they're never wrong. They kick in for a reason, because it's your higher self ringing the alarm bells. Don't let them doubt yourself, because then when you get stuck in your head, if you don't know how to get yourself out of it like I do, then that can lead to lean towards feeding into paranormal activity, unhealthy practices like drugs and addictions and that sort of thing, and falling into mental health disorders. And that's what I'm trying to help people avoid, because these doctors are idiots. They don't know what the hell they know nothing about the high functioning mind, and they certainly know nothing about the supernatural world or physics or anything like that. They're really not worth the paper they're written on. So it's a catch-22. I was put in the most insurmountable odds that I had to overcome by having to rely only on myself and do my own investigations. But now I have all the answers for you, so half your work is done. I'll speak to you later. Hold your head up high. Ka kite anō. Mwah.